So, here we are with Rob Parkinson, the CEO of Action Homeless. Tell me, were you stunned by some of the questions from the young people?
I just had a proper grilling from everybody, and I think I answered most of them okay, but some were pretty tough.
Yeah, it was a bit like the mayor's hustings on steroids, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, they're so incredibly knowledgeable, but without the facts. Do you find that? I mean, they might not be able to tell you how many. I mean, actually, one of them actually guessed roughly that there were 54 sleepers. She guessed between 50 and 60.
Yeah.
But they do seem to know quite a lot about the subject without necessarily being given the facts. So that's what was so useful about you talking to them. I mean, from your point of view, what did you think?
Yeah, I think they showed great awareness about some of the issues, which is brilliant, but much more importantly, actually, they showed some real perception in terms of the kind of questions they're asking. And sometimes it takes somebody that maybe doesn't know a subject brilliantly to come up and say, do you know what about that? And have you thought about that? And surely that's something you ought to try. And we got a bit of that tonight. And that's sometimes one of the powerful things about listening to what young people have got to say about situations right across the globe. But from my point of view, what they've got to say about homelessness. And that tonight just showed how useful that can be. I've even got an example of good practice from Germany that I need to follow up from somebody. So, there's some useful stuff. And, the more kind of interactions like that we have, the more actually we start to look at how young people think about important issues, and hopefully we switch young people on to what's going on in Leicester today.
Now, a lot of these guys here are from, I'm just putting this laptop down because my arm's going to drop off in a minute. I'm already exhausted. We've still got to go to Grace Road, yeah?
I know.
A lot of the, absolutely, mate. A lot of the young people are from the Children's Council and aspiring to be in the youth parliament as well. And some of their mentors are in the youth parliament. And it was quite interesting. One of the mentors came out with the question about, the correlation between the cost of getting an empty property going or keeping the police out of it through, vandalism or squatting, to actually doing it up and making it available. Do you think things like young people, being involved in sort of young parliamentary things, given them is a good thing, that kind of scrutiny, asking questions?
Yeah, it's got to be, and it's good because actually young people have got an awful lot to be able to contribute to the city and what we're doing in Leicester. But it's also really good because actually this is training up young people who are interested in debate, interested in what's going on in public life, interested in the issues that matter to their city for the future. And people who have had this kind of involvement at a really young age might want to get involved later down the line, maybe not in politics, but maybe in something that makes a difference to the lives of people that are around us every single day. And that's all too good. That's absolutely fantastic.
Well, nothing said that none of these young people can't go on and work in the homelessness sector.
And come and work for charities because we need all the really, really good people that we can possibly get who are passionate about making a social difference to our city, to our country, and even further afield than that. And the more young people that can get passionate about issues that matter to them and say, hand on heart, this is something that I want to do with my life, that in my book equals success from nights like tonight.
Now, if we look at maybe in the mainstream media and things like charities or charitable sectors or certain things that we know about, we tend to have people making appeals at certain times of year around certain issues. And I've always been quite impressed with Action Homeless's approach and under your leadership in particular about how you've tackled that. There's 54 rough sleepers tonight in Leicester. And that emergency bed scenario shouldn't just be during the winter, and it shouldn't just be, leading up to Christmas, maybe when we pull on heartstrings for an extra, couple of pound in a tin. It's a situation that's there all year, isn't it?
It is, and it's one of the great homelessness conundrums that society thinks that homelessness happens when it's cold and at Christmas, when we're all thinking about family and it's really motivating us to do something about it. But the issues that homeless people feel at Christmas are just the same in summer and in September and in autumn and in spring, and it makes no difference. The only thing that's perhaps a little bit different that really sharpens our minds at this time of year is it's freezing out. And that does mean that it's extra important to make sure that nobody's rough sleeping. But why should it be any different in the summer to try and bring an end to a problem that is actually making a misery of people's lives than it is at Christmas? So, the slogan, homelessness isn't just for Christmas, it's for the whole year round. Couldn't be more true right now in Leicester.
Now, we're working in partnership with you with some lottery funding on Down Not Out, the news agency about homelessness. and I'm sure people will have seen lots of things around that, so we won't go into that in detail. But I remember when we first looked at this 3 years ago, we did a bit of a snapshot survey in Town Hall Square of about 50 odd people around, describe to me someone who is a rough sleeper or has experienced homeless, and it was like, a white male, indeterminate age, domestic violence, drink, alcohol, drugs, the army, prison, all those kind of stereotypes. And really, you must see so many that fit that mould, but there's also many more that don't fit that mould at all. And do you think that's really where something like social media or Down Not Out's really going to come in, really kind of telling people that you're only a couple of pay packets away from it yourself?
Yeah, the stereotype is important because there are people out there in Leicester right now who have got those issues, and it's not necessarily their fault that it's happened, and we've got to make sure that we pick them up and give them a better future. But there's also an awful lot of people that don't fit that mould, people who as homelessness experiences come about through things like domestic violence, that's come about because they've had a whole sequence of really tragic things happen in their life, from bereavement to losing your job, to losing your family, to losing everything that you possibly got, to also people that are coming out of the armed forces and kids that are leaving care, who are so used to institutionalised living that they actually can't work particularly well on their own. And all of these things we need to find solutions to in Leicester. And these are the things that start to explode some of those stereotypes we found last year and make us realise that the causes of homelessness are actually far more complicated, far more complex, and far more difficult to solve in many cases than maybe actually people give the issue credit for.
And just finally, we're off to Grace Road now, and you've got about, you said, between 60 and 70 people sleeping out there, and hopefully they'll raise a fair old sum. And we've probably got about, 12, 16, something like that, young people here. They're going to raise 300 quid. It's not a great deal of money, but it is, isn't it, when you put it all together and kind of provide that kind of support.
Well, let's put it this way. There will be at least 54 people here in at Grace Road tonight, putting their hands on their hearts and saying, this is an issue that we want to do something about. That's one person for every rough sleeper in Leicester tonight. One person wanting to make a difference for every single rough sleeper in Leicester. That's a pretty powerful message right now that young people and people that are motivated by the issue want to send out to every single person working in homelessness today in Leicester to say, no more, let's end this, we can do it as a city, and let's make the future slightly better for people who are in real difficulty.
Thanks, Rob.
Cheers.